Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
You're listening to Roundtable. I'm Steve Hatherley today with Yangyang and Yushan. Coming up, for years, A grades have been piling up like participation trophies. But now Harvard is hitting the brakes. A strict 20% cap on top marks has students feeling nervous and corporate recruiters thrilled. But why the sudden crackdown? And will other elite schools follow suit? We'll dig into the numbers and find out what this really means for the next generation of graduates. After that, I wonder if this has happened to you. You've grabbed a bag of oranges that seemed beautifully ripe at the supermarket, but then you felt disappointed when you opened up that same bag in your kitchen. The fruit was the same all along. So what happened? Well, your eyes just saw it differently. From plastic pouches that pump up color to lighting setups engineered to seduce your senses, we'll uncover the quiet cues that steer our spending habits behind our backs. Our podcast listeners can find us at Roundtable China on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget, we'd love to hear from you too, so you can send your voice notes our way. Roundtablepodcast at qq.com. Once again, roundtablepodcast at qq.com. And now, in a landmark move, Harvard University faculty voted overwhelmingly to impose a strict 20% cap on undergraduate A grades, taking direct aim at decades of grade inflation. Grade inflation is the progressive rise in average grades awarded to students over time. The decision is a big one because it marks a historic turning point, sparking fierce debates among students, educators, and corporate employers alike. The students are not very happy at all. So the question is, why did the school feel forced to take such drastic action? And is this the beginning of a wider Ivy League trend? More importantly, perhaps, what does it mean for the students who have grown accustomed to near-perfect transcripts? And why are corporate recruiters celebrating in the streets? That one I had to think about for a little while, but when we talk about the answer, it will become quite clear. It is a big move when we talk about any university putting a cap on grades, but it's more newsworthy, it feels like, when we talk about Harvard University.
Yeah, we would think that Harvard is the place that the brilliant minds gather, but even them are telling their professors to not give as many A's, flat A's, to their students as they've done before.
Yeah, so how does this work exactly?
Yeah, the faculty members, they approved this cap in Harvard University by a wide margin of 458 to 201 to restore academic rigor. So this policy, it basically just limit the number of flat A grades that professors can award in any undergraduate class, and that is to combat grade inflation. And also, this feature allows instructors to award flat A's to 20% of a class plus an additional 4 students.
Yeah, that's kind of an important add-on there, the additional 4.
Yeah, the plus 4. I don't truly understand what I am saying. What is this plus 4 about?
Well, so... And by the way, this isn't going to happen immediately. This is scheduled to go into effect in the fall of 2027.
Oh.
So there is a bit of an adjustment period here. So the instructors can award an A grade to 20% of the class, including an additional 4. So it was specifically designed to protect small seminar-style classes where a strict 20% would, where a limit would be far too restrictive. So that means that a tiny class of 10 students can actually award up to 6 flat A grades.
Yeah.
See what I mean? So if you have a smaller class,
Then 20.
yeah, if you only have 10 students in the class, you can only give out 20% 8. That's 2. Right? So
deal.
In that class of 10, you have a bit of flexibility there.
But while flat A's are capped, professors are still entirely free to give out as many grades of A- or below as they want. So proponents of this compromise hopes it will establish a healthy new middle ground for high achievement. However, some critics worry it leaves an easy loophole for professors who want to keep their course evaluations high.
It's from the professor's side, but from the student side, I would think it's not really a good news to many.
Oh, the students are not happy about this
Right.
at all. Along with the cap, by the way, there's another vote too. The faculty voted 498 to 157 to use a student's average percentile rank instead of a GPA, a grade point average,
Yeah.
to determine. That'll be used for internal awards and honors and things like that. And that system is designed to stop grade shopping. Have you heard that term before? Grade shopping is where students will deliberately avoid difficult or challenging courses to protect their perfect GPA. It's something that I employed when I was in university.
Universal.
Yes, it was a Canadian thing too, despite the fact that I did not have a perfect GPA.
You
Well,
tried.
I think it's kind of borrowed here in a lot of universities in China too, right?
Yeah, I think Peking University has also employed this rules.
Yeah.
And it abolished the GPA system and instead it give vague ranking to students to decrease the phenomenon of grade shopping.
Yeah.
Why now, though? I mean, the university felt that this was the right time to make this drastic change. So they say that it's because of grade inflation. If we look at the numbers, we'll see that the grade inflation was actually pretty severe.
Yeah, nowadays there seem to be too many flat A's because back in 2005, flat A is represented only by 24% of all undergraduate letter grades at the university. But 10 years later, by 2015, that number rose to 40%. And by 2025, it had reached an astonishing 60% of all grades, meaning that the highest academic mark had essentially lost its meaning in a way. And also, it's like it doesn't carry as much significance as it does before.
It doesn't carry the same weight, right? If I ask you, oh, Yushan, what was your score in this class? And you say A. And I say, wow, that's impressive. And I say, Yangyang, what was your score? And you say A. And I say, oh, you're both amazing. And I say, Ron, what was your score in this class? And Ron says A. I'm like, hold on. Well, nothing against Ron, but just why is everybody getting an A in this class? So it's like if you tell your partner you love them 55 times a day, the words start to lose their meaning a little bit. Now, this problem was confounded by the pandemic as well. Now, you might wonder why. What connection was there? Well, Josh Green is a Harvard psychology professor. And Josh Green was serving on the grading reform panel, and he said that during the pandemic, grade inflation got a lot worse because teachers adopted a default mindset of kind of generosity, and they gave students the benefit of the doubt because at the time life was very hard.
Yeah, everybody was doing online classes.
It was
at
hard.
home.
It was hard for the professors. It was very hard for the students. So this kind of default setting of like, oh, well, maybe you should have gotten an A minus, but you know what? I'll just give you an A.
to cheer you up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and it kind of makes sense. But what it did was it started this habit of soft grading. And what they
right.
say, what Josh Green says, is that habit of soft grading has stuck around even though the pandemic is long behind us now.
Yeah, and that has led Harvard University's Dean of Undergraduate Education to warn everybody that this massive rise in easy grades was actively harming the school's intellectual environment. So it is indeed hollowed out courses by encouraging students to only enroll in classes where they were guaranteed to have an A. So, yeah, in the long run, this is not going to be a good thing for the students and for the university.
Yeah, she brought up another interesting point because she said that this created a culture of extreme stress over anything less than an A.
Right.
Because, and it makes sense that the dean brought that up, because if every student around you is getting A's all the time and you suddenly don't, well, then what does that do to your confidence as a student? What does that do to your anxiety level as you're preparing or studying or learning in class? It's constantly on your mind. I need to get an A. I need to get an A. I need to get an A.
Well, it reminds me of a Chinese saying as 不患寡而患不均. Well, that means that people are not worried about having too little. They're worried about the things being distributed unfairly. So,
good.
yeah, that is...
Good point.
Yeah, so that is also why I can understand the anxiety of students of not getting an A minus or like they have to get an A.
Right. The rat race only gets snowballed if we continuously expect students to... Yeah, A is the norm. And if you're below that, you are falling behind, even when you're giving it all.
Yeah. I think the argument here, and this is something that came to my mind, is that this is Harvard University. This is meant to be one of the most impressive academic institutions on the planet. The students who attend that academic institution are meant to be some of the most impressive students on the planet. So, if you have the best students going to the best school, is it not unreasonable to think that those students would consistently get A's?
Yeah. A lot of people agree with you, Steve. A
Right?
lot of critics, they say that this is just the school's policy. It shouldn't be blamed on the students that they work hard enough and they earn an A. They deserve an A. So if a course has rigorous expectations and students meet them, they should receive A's. And the real issue isn't that the students are too smart, but that too many professors have made their classes far too easy for the students. And the cap is seen as a man-made fix for that failure of teaching standards rather than a true measure of subject mastery among students. I'm not sure if every experts believe on the same thing, but yeah, certainly.
Well, experts don't all agree on this.
Right.
There's a professor by the name of Jonathan Zimmerman from UPenn who says that if the students are all getting A's, you can't punish the students because the students are doing their job. What you have to look at is the course standards.
Right.
The courses have become too easy. The courses have become so easy that it makes it possible for every student to get an A. So if you put this cap of 20% A's for the class, that doesn't fix the problem. The problem is the teaching standards need to rise up. They need to get tougher. They need to get better. The quality of the education in the classroom needs to get better, and the professors need to demand more for the students to truly master the subject, because that's what an A is intended to be for. You have mastered the material in this class.
Yeah, well, I think there's a report backing the argument because the one university official report showed that while there's a great inflation, academic standards do not. The report warned that modern undergraduates actually struggle with reading assignments that students completed with ease just 10 years ago. So this also suggests that great inflation was masking a decline in actual academic rigor and student preparation.
Yeah, well, that can be a point, I guess. But for the students themselves, I'm sure this is a big issue because one February survey that suggests that an astonishing 85% of students actually disapproved of the grading reforms.
Only 85?
Well, it's the majority. And they feel their voices are ignored. And nobody likes their survival environment, and in their case is the academic ecosystem getting tighter and tighter and stricter in some ways, and if not to a toxic level that they have to fight to be the best in their class, even though they are already among the best.
Well, I mean, that spirit of competition is supposed to exist in classrooms. Or maybe let me rephrase. Not supposed to exist, but kind of naturally exists. Students are arguing against that, though. They say that if you cap the number of A's, it's going to destroy the collaborative culture on campus. And they're arguing that if your classmates' success directly threatens your own grades, students will be less willing to study together. They'll be less willing to share notes or support each other. it turns the classroom into a zero-sum game, meaning if one student gets an A, another person can't. I don't agree with this at all.
Why?
Because when I went to university, I don't think we had a limit on the number of A's that could be handed out in classes, but it wasn't even something that was discussed among the students in the class. We didn't think of ourselves as competitive against each other to the point that it affected our relationship. Right? I had group study, I had group projects, but never once did I think, oh, I'm not going to help you because I want to protect myself first. But that being said, I didn't go to Harvard University, and I think it might be a different mindset. It might be a completely different mindset of the students who walk into those classrooms looking at everyone else around because they know they are all elite. And sorry, just one final point that just popped into my mind. These Harvard undergrads just came from high schools, right? Where they were probably the best student in the entire school.
Well, yeah, that's
right?
a good point.
Right. And then they walk into Harvard where they're not necessarily the best anymore, but they've trained themselves to be at the number one spot. So I'm going to disagree with the point that I just made before. I'm going to say I understand where this anxiety would come from. The fear of not being able to get an A. Yeah, I actually get it now more that I've talked it out.
Yeah, because maybe under the new rule, a tiny little mistake can make you get a A minus instead of an A. Whereas in the before you can easily get an A even if you made a small tiny error in the examination. So I think that is why students are so mindful of their
Steve
knowledge.
Luke's disapproval.
Well,
And
no,
competition.
because I've taught university before, and I had this conversation with my students because we called it grading on a curve, right? Where it's the same thing.
Yeah.
There's only a certain number of A's that you can give out.
Yeah, well, that is called normal distribution. It is also a mechanism in the university where I took my master's. It follows a bell curve, meaning that only the majority of students' grades fall into the middle, the normal range, and only like a few students can sit at the top or at the bottom.
So I told them this information at the beginning of the semester. I said, here's how many A's I can give out in this class. You understand? And they said, yeah. And I said, so what that means is at the end of this semester, there's going to be a very close line between some students, meaning some of you will get that A and some of you will get an A minus. And there's nothing I can do about that. Okay? And they said, I said, okay, so how do you ensure that you are on the right side of that line, on the A side? So don't skip any classes, participate, blah, 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 all the things, all the boring stuff professors say. And they said, And then I knew it. At the end of the semester.
And they go to your office.
Oh, they complained.
Why do I have an A
Why did I
minus?
get an A minus? I said, because the student who was given the A outscored you by 2 points. Is it fair? No, I told them it's not necessarily fair, but it is what it is. And that's the argument against this. What about the students that absolutely deserve an A, but they just won't be able to get it because of something, because of the cap or because of one student did a little tiny bit better on something. To me, that's not fair.
Yeah, and also for many of these students that belongs with Harvard or other Ivy League schools, they have more long-term plans of getting a postgraduate degree somewhere else. So, which means the grade means a lot heavier for them than other students. So if these universities, including Harvard, they have the cap, and the other schools do not have such cap where flat A's are still out there for the majority of the students, will that be even close to fair when it comes to applying for postgraduate.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of other schools, Yale, they're dealing with similar concerns. They have floated the idea of capping average course grades to a 3.0, which is a B average. A report from Yale warned that their current grades cease to convey useful information about student achievement and are no longer seen as trustworthy. So we could see this reflected in other Ivy League schools. Now, that leads us to our final point here, is that when the grades are not seen as trustworthy, because everybody has the same grade, corporate recruiters don't look at your A as a positive thing anymore. And that's why I said in the beginning, when it didn't make sense to me, why are recruiters so happy about this change? Because now recruiters will be able to see some differentiation among Harvard graduates.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas before, A, next applicant, A, next applicant, A, next applicant, A. These people are all the same? Really? That can't be true. So that's why recruiters are feeling good about this.
Well, I guess they have a good point, but the rejoicing over real distinction is on the fact that a lot of these elites are applying, and under the old system, they have this concern over this. But then there's also the danger of the non-academic metrics too. So one journalist writing for the New York Post pointed out that when transcripts are meaningless, recruiters, they have to rely on other factors, which are also equally, if not important in terms of who is to be hired. And this journalist argued that employers fall back on elite family connections and polished personal essays, which are increasingly written by artificial intelligence nowadays.
Yeah.
So internship pedigrees instead of what the students actually learned can be, jeopardizing the outcome too.
Yeah, and there's an argument that having a system like this will restore the trust in the university, restore the public trust, saying that, we are aware of grade inflation. We want to fight against this, and here's what we're doing about it. And you have to see that as a positive thing. I mean, those statistics that you shared before, Yushan, those are pretty shocking. The number of A's given out between 2004 and 2025, the percentage of students.
Yeah.
Up to 60%. It's just too much, isn't it? You're listening to Roundtable, and when we come back from the break, why does your fruit look different at the supermarket?
Looking for passion? How about fiery debate? Want to hear about current events in China from different perspectives? Then tune in to Roundtable, where East meets West and understanding is the goal.
Have you ever bought a bag of oranges that looked perfectly ripe in the store only to realize that they weren't quite as vibrant when you got home? Well, it turns out that the fruit may not have changed at all, only your perception did. From packaged bags that make oranges look riper to carefully designed environments, we're going to talk about the tricks. Are they tricks that supermarkets are playing on us? Yangyang, why are so many oranges and mandarins in the supermarket sold in those red mesh bags? We've all seen them, right? Yeah, they look kind of cool. They feel kind of cool too.
Yeah, well, at first glance, I thought the red mesh bag is used only for protection or improve the ventilation or,
Easy carrying.
Easy carrying, but according to researchers and visual perception experts, the real reason may be much deeper because they can make the fruit look better. A fascinating example comes from German psychologist Karl Gegenfertner. After purchasing a bag of oranges packed in an orange-red mesh net, he noticed that the fruit looked perfectly ripe in the supermarket,
right.
But once he removed the orange from the bag at home, they suddenly appear much greener than he remembered. The oranges themselves had not changed the color.
So what happened?
Well, I think the reason lies in a visual phenomenon known as color assimilation, a type of optical illusion in which nearby color influence how our brains perceive an object. So when fine grids, stripes, or mesh patterns cover an image, our visual system partially blend those colors with the object underneath. As a result, the object begins to take on some of the characteristics of the surrounding color.
Oh,
So
they're
in the
blending together.
It's
Yeah.
like wearing a filtered glass.
Right.
Or a pair of glasses.
Yeah, they act almost like a beauty filler. The warm colored net visually blend with the fruit beneath it, making green patches appear less noticeable while enhancing the rich orange tones that consumers associate with ripeness. So in other words, the brain unconsciously incorporates some of the mesh color into the fruit's appearance, causing the oranges to look more mature and appealing than they actually are.
Don't they do this with broccoli?
Yes, and other
Now that I'm
leafy
thinking about
vegetables, but it's not red.
Yeah, it's not red. It's a different color.
It's stripped in green. Those bags that have green stripes that's printed on otherwise transparent plastic. So they use these particular kind of bags to make the green vegetables look fresher
Because
or greener.
the green stripes make the broccoli look greener.
Yeah.
They're already very green.
Yeah, that is also
Many
how
cases.
yellow mesh bags make the lemons look
Ah,
yeah.
I'm never buying anything again. Never. I feel like I'm being tricked constantly by marketers.
But did you know that the bags or the packaging is just one thing? We also have LED lights that's supposed to make vegetables look fresher and makes them look better than they actually are.
Yeah. I mean, that I knew about because they'll do that at supermarkets. They have those spotlights sometimes that shine down, and I knew that that was there to make it look good. What I didn't know is that those mesh bags or the striped bags made the fruits or the vegetables look more like the color that they're supposed to look like.
Well, sometimes our eyes can trick us.
It's true. All right, that's it for today's Roundtable. Thank you very much for being a part of our program today. Thanks to Yangyang, thanks to Yushan. I'm Steve Hatherley. We hope you enjoy your Dragon Boat Festival time and come back and join us again next time.